Hello everyone, and welcome to today's video. Today I'm going over the electoral map, and I'm specifically looking at states that since the 2000 election between George Bush and Al Gore, and going all the way up to the 2020 election between Joe Biden and Donald Trump, I'm looking at states that have been competitive in the past few election cycles and kind of analyzing them where they are now and kind of how much they've changed in that time. So before I start, first thing I want to say is please remember to like the video and subscribe. And also, the states of Oregon, Missouri, and Indiana, they all have been close in one election, but have not been too competitive in a while. So I'm going to just leave them in the uncontested category, but they are states that I did just want to address briefly before I got into the video. So, these states in yellow. What I'm looking at these states are, in the previous elections and in the coming ones, these are the states in yellow that I think have the most potential to go for one party or another party. That if an election is going to be close and states are going to flip, these are the most likely states to flip. And part of this is a lot of these states have flipped in the last 20 years. Not all of them, but a lot of them have or have become very close. Meanwhile, there are some states on the electoral map that have flipped that I don't have on here, like Missouri and Indiana, or states that have been solid red and are getting a little closer, South Carolina being one of them, for instance. And Texas, I actually have put on here because it's very important to note. And speaking of Texas, Texas is a state that used to be a very solid Republican state, voting for the Republican candidate over the Democratic candidate by well over 15 to 20 percentage points. And now there's been a lot of people moving into the state of Texas, and as immigration increases, Texas has been getting closer and closer. So in the 2000 election, you'd expect Texas to be safe in the Republican column, no doubt about it. But now, I would argue the state of Texas is in the likely column for now. And depending on the candidate, for instance, if it was Trump versus Biden again, and President Biden's approval ratings were still good, you could argue Texas would be in the lean column. However, since Biden's approval ratings are looking very bad right now, I would argue Texas stays in the likely column, but Texas is not the Republican bellwether of a state that it used to. Another state with an interesting trend was the state of Colorado. Colorado was a swing state back in 2000 and 2004 that voted for George Bush. Colorado was a swing state Republicans thought they had in 2012 and 2016 respectively. I remember I was watching some videos because 2012 was the first election I actually really paid attention to, and Mitt Romney's pathway to the presidency had to do with winning the state of Colorado, and President Obama's re-election campaign said if he can win Colorado and Iowa and Ohio, then he has the presidency locked up. So Republicans really had a shot to win Colorado, but for some reason over the last few years, Colorado's just really swung to the Democratic side, so much so that you could argue on a good night, Colorado's going to the Democrats between 5 and 9 percentage points. And you could argue, honestly, with Donald Trump on the ballot, Colorado is a safe swing state for the Democrats now. If it's a generic Democrat versus generic Republican, I nearly put Colorado in the likely column, but this is a state that has trended to the left a lot. And again, as a state that has trended to the left, immigration being a reason, Republicans kind of falling out of touch with some of the voters in Colorado, that's a big thing that's happened in the state of Colorado. New Mexico is similar, where in 2000, 2004, I believe it was won by Bush once, and now it has definitely trended to the Democratic side, where in 2008 and 2012, New Mexico is pretty much a safe Democratic state. However, Donald Trump did show New Mexico potentially being closer than in some previous elections, so New Mexico may actually swing back to the GOP in the next few election cycles. I'm not saying it's going to Trump in 2024 if it's him versus Biden again, but I'm saying that on election night in 2024 or 2028, if a Republican does very well and they win New Mexico by under 1%, I wouldn't say that I expect it, but I wouldn't be exactly surprised. So New Mexico is a state that is currently likely, maybe lean, but I'm going to say currently likely for now because Republicans have an opportunity to pick up that state that in the last 20 years has trended to the Democratic side. The state of Arizona, however, is the complete opposite. Arizona was a Republican state for a very long time, and it's kind of funny when you look at it. I guess I don't know if funny is the right word to use, but as the late Senator John McCain was alive, Arizona was always a very strong Republican state. And then the second Donald Trump got on the ballot, Arizona started getting closer and closer to flipping. And then John McCain and President Donald Trump were obviously not too friendly. And after the passing of John McCain in the 2020 election, Arizona officially flipped. And that was the first time a Republican has lost Arizona in a very long time. So now Arizona really is in this very, very tight competitive toss-up center. Arizona is a state you could argue is a complete and total toss-up because the Republican DNA of the state is still there enough to make it be a tilt state, but Democrats have also not lost an election for Senate, and I believe they have not controlled the House, but they've won a lot of House seats and have not lost a Senate election in about 3 years now. So, and Doug Ducey was governor, a very popular governor at the time, but also he's fallen out of favor with the former president as well. So you could argue Arizona is closer to tilt Democrat than tilt Republican at this very moment, which for the sake of this video and not leaving it as competitive so I can move on, I am going to leave it until Democrat because that is the direction that it's currently sitting in. The state of Nevada is very, very interesting. Nevada is the classic swing state. It was a Republican state for Bush in 2000, 2004. I believe I voted for him once, maybe twice, but I know for sure once. And then President Obama won Nevada very handily in 2008 and 2012. And then many people expected Hillary Clinton to win the state of Nevada pretty handily in 2016. However, it was a very, very close election by about a 3% margin or so. And then in 2020, it got slightly closer to the Republican side, with Trump losing to Joe Biden by about 2.8 percentage points or so. So Nevada is getting closer and closer. And at the presidential level, you can make the argument Nevada will flip in 2024. But for now, I can't put Nevada in the tilt Republican column yet. I think the 2022 midterms will be a big indicator for this. Until whatever 2022 unfolds, for now, Nevada stays in the lean Democratic column. But if Democrats aren't careful, Nevada's a state that under Obama was safe and is now down to lean, and a good showing in 2022 can make this state a tilt R state. The state of Iowa. Actually, let's do Nebraska's 2nd district first. Nebraska's 2nd district is interesting because it was a solid R district under Bush and McCain, which narrowly lost it to Obama, but Obama won pretty much everything in 2008. Mitt Romney was able to win it back in 2012, and Trump won it in 2016, lost in 2020. This district has definitely trended to the Democratic side, but I just think Republicans still hold a very narrow edge in this district. If it's a Republican in 2024 who's not Donald Trump, I think this district goes probably in the lean column. If it is Donald Trump, I'm going to say it narrowly goes in the tilt column. Very, very close, but that's going to be it for that district. The state of Iowa. Iowa is a state that really was a true toss-up state. For Bush, I believe it went for him, I think it went for him once, and then Obama won it twice, and then Trump won it twice. Iowa right now is in that strong Republican column, but I'm interested to see if there's in 2024 or 2028, where there's an election where Donald Trump is not on the ballot, how will Iowa react? Because Iowa had a lot of voters who voted for Obama and then voted for Trump. And in the age of politics where Trump will not be on the ballot, it's interesting to see will Iowa revert back to its Democratic past for Obama? Will it be a Republican but not as strong? Or is the identity ingrained and now it is safe? It's a good question. Ohio, same way. Republican for Bush, Democrat for Obama, and now Republican for Trump twice. Will it stay solid? Will it stay likely? Will it go lean? I'm not sure. For now, you have to make the argument that it has gone solid for Republicans because that is their current trend. But Ohio and Iowa, a good showing by Democrats. I think that Sherrod Brown in 2018 proved it. These states will still vote for a Democrat if they like the candidate. But for now, it is definitely trended in a very Republican manner. The state of Minnesota is interesting. Minnesota is a state that the Republican Party has put some effort into, and they've almost flipped it. And then when they actually put a lot of effort into, Democrats seem to win big. For instance, I believe it was 2004, Bush almost won the state of Minnesota. I think it was under like 2 percentage points or something like that. It was very, very close. And then Obama won Minnesota very handily in 2008 and 2012. Trump almost upset Hillary Clinton in a major surprise in the state of Minnesota. I believe Hillary Clinton winning the state under 3 percentage points or so. And then Republicans put more of an emphasis on Minnesota in 2020, and Joe Biden won it by about 7 or 8 percentage points or so. If I'm correct, I believe New Hampshire had a bigger margin of victory than Minnesota, I think, which is one of those stats where it's like, whoa, okay. So Minnesota is a state that is definitely competitive, but I just think its nature as a state is more on the Democratic side. So I don't think it's in the lean column. I think it's a likely Democratic state as of right now, but a state that is definitely interesting in how it's trending. I'm putting it in likely because that's how I see it, though. We have the Rust Belt states now. These three are the most interesting states. These states have been consistently Democratic under, you know what? I'm trying to think if I want to break them up individually or just do them all as three. I'll do this. Michigan has been a safe Democratic state until Trump won it in 2016. And then it narrowly went for Trump, under 1%, with only 47.3% of the vote. So a plurality of voters voted for Trump. And then Gretchen Whitmer flipped the state back in 2018. And so far, it has voted Democrat for president in 2020 and Senate in 2020. So for now, Michigan is a very close state, but I would argue it is in the same category of Nevada, which is it can flip in 2022, and then in 2024 you can argue that as a tilt Republican state to start off, but for now I would expect Michigan to be in that 2 to 3% range in the Democrats' favor, for now. That is a state that's definitely trending one way or another, though. The state of Wisconsin is very different. Wisconsin almost voted Republican for Bush, but the Democrats were able to hold on to the state of Wisconsin. In 2008, Obama won Wisconsin pretty big, which was expected. In 2012, Mitt Romney picked Paul Ryan as his vice president in the hopes of expanding the electoral map and potentially giving Mitt Romney a chance to upset Obama in Wisconsin, as he knew his popularity in Ohio, Iowa, and Colorado was not exactly great. He needed something to fall back on that would be a potential boost to his campaign. This ended up backfiring, and Barack Obama and Joe Biden won Wisconsin by about 7 or 8 percentage points, and that really did not help out Mitt Romney at all until 2016, where Hillary Clinton was thought to have Wisconsin on lock. And a very interesting thing, I believe in the primaries in 2016, Bernie Sanders and Ted Cruz won the state of Wisconsin. Trump and Hillary both did very bad in the state, and despite this, Trump was still able to flip the state and have the biggest margin of victory in these three Rust Belt states. But again, this was a plurality of the vote state that reverted back to the Democrats in 2018 and was very, very close in 2020, but still went Democrat. So you could make the argument Wisconsin starts off as a lean Democratic seat. However, Wisconsin has shown Republican DNA in the past, with Scott Walker winning, I believe was it 2 terms before he got voted out? So Wisconsin's a state that I would argue, kind of going off on a hunch for 2022, I would argue Wisconsin's DNA is now in the tilt Republican column. It is more Republican than Michigan, but I can't put it in the lean column yet, even though I think it will be for 2024. In 2022, I think Wisconsin starts off as a tilt Republican state with Tony Evers. At this point, I'd put my money on him probably losing re-election. It will be very, very close. If Tony Evers does lose, it will be by a Scott Walker, Tony Evers margin of like 1 to 2%. It'll be very close. But I would put Wisconsin in that category of very, very close. Can go either way, but narrowly in the Republican side. Pennsylvania is tough because this is a state that is very similar to Wisconsin and Michigan. Voted Democrat both times for Obama. Very close to Bush, but Bush never won it. Trump was able to narrowly flip it back. And then the Democrat, Joe Biden, was able to narrowly win it. 2020, I don't want to call the election an anomaly, but to be completely honest with you, I don't know where Pennsylvania stands, because the polling data started off for 2022 showing Pennsylvania will flip back. And then after Sean Parnell dropped out, it looked like the Senate race was going to go blue. The governor's race is going to be close, but I still think Lou Barletta, if the election was held today, would narrowly win just because of the environment of 2022. But this race literally is a pure toss-up state. Pennsylvania has a lot of Democratic representation in Congress and the governorship right now. And I think this will be one of the biggest states that has a change. So I'm going Pennsylvania narrowly in the tilt column just because I think 2022 will be a big year. And if Republicans do perform well in Pennsylvania for 2024, I'm still leaving Pennsylvania in the tilt column. That state is too close. It's not going to trend one big way or another, at least not for another few election cycles. Pennsylvania will definitely be a very close state that can go back and forth, I think, for a while. Next, we're going to go to the Northeast before we go south. The state of New Hampshire. New Hampshire is a very interesting case study, which shows, I think, very much what kind of state New Hampshire is. In 2000 and 2004, Bush won the state once, and he was a Republican who resonated very well with the people of New Hampshire. And then Barack Obama comes in, and he is a Democrat who represents very well with the state of New Hampshire. And Mitt Romney, who is from Massachusetts, he was looked at one of the better Republicans who could potentially flip back New Hampshire in 2012. And Mitt Romney, I still believe, lost his state by somewhere between 6 and 10 percentage points. So Romney wasn't able to do well in New Hampshire. And many people thought, well, if Romney can't win New Hampshire, Trump probably has no shot in 2016. And then Hillary Clinton won the state of New Hampshire by less than 1%. And here's the question. Was it because Trump appealed to the people of New Hampshire? Or was it because Hillary Clinton was a very, very poor candidate, especially for the state of New Hampshire? And the answer was Hillary Clinton was a poor candidate for New Hampshire. The people of New Hampshire may have liked some of the policies that Trump had, but his persona is very brash style, does not play well with the not libertarian, but free-minded people of New Hampshire, which is why we saw in 2020 the state swing to a 7-point victory for Joe Biden. New Hampshire is still at its core a swing state that can go either way. Republican Governor Chris Sununu was a big example of this. But if you're a Republican in New Hampshire, you can't be a 100% Trump, hard to the right Republican. 2020 was proof of that. If you're a quote-unquote New England Republican, which a lot of Republicans like to bash, that's how you win in places like New Hampshire and Massachusetts and off-year elections. So New Hampshire can still go can still go Republican at the presidential level, but New Hampshire at the presidential level, which as long as things continue to be polarized, for instance, you're either a Trump candidate or you're not. If it's the Trump style of the Republican Party, I still think New Hampshire stays in the likely column. If it's a return to the more establishment type of Republicans, I think New Hampshire goes down to lean. But for now, I think it would be a likely New Hampshire for the Democrats at this time. Maine at large went very close, almost going for Trump in 2016, then reverted big for Biden in 2020. I think Maine at large will be in the likely column. Maine's first district is still safe, but Maine's second district, actually, I would put that district narrowly in the Trump column now. It is represented, or the Republican column, mainly because of Donald Trump. It has a Democratic representative, so you may argue, well, why would it be in that column and not in the tilt Democratic column? Because Trump on the ballot has won this district in 2016 and 2020 twice now. So until Trump or another Republican loses this district, I'm going to keep it in tilt R. The state of Virginia. The state of Virginia fascinates me because this is one of the most interesting states I think there is in terms of presidential politics. This state voted for the Republican Party going back, I think, until, was it 1968 with Nixon, I believe? Nixon or Johnson, I think, definitely won it in 64. So I think it was until Nixon in 1968. This state has voted for the Republican candidate for president. And this state voted for Bush twice. It only voted for Obama over McCain by less than, I believe, 2 percentage points, or even 1 percentage point. So Virginia was a state that was very close. However, the population in the urban D.C. area and the suburbs of D.C., this being your Fairfax County and your Loudoun County and your Prince William County, the state started slowly trending blue. So Obama narrowly won it in 2008. He won it by a slightly bigger margin against Mitt Romney in 2012, but due to Mitt Romney being an establishment type of Republican, was able to keep the state close. In 2016, the state being not too friendly to Donald Trump, combined with Tim Kaine being the running mate, which didn't have that much of an effect, but Virginia still liking Hillary Clinton, went in the likely column for the Democrats. And then in the 2020 election, it went for Joe Biden by about 10 percentage points, putting it in my opinion, in the more solid Democratic column. And then Virginia went back to its Virginia ways and voted for Glenn Youngkin for governor in 2021. And next thing you know, Republicans are thinking, well, is Virginia a Republican state again? No. No, it is not. Because this is something that a lot of national Republicans won't understand. Virginia barely voted for Glenn Youngkin, number one. And number two, Glenn Youngkin ran his campaign on focusing on Virginia values, and not feeding into the national Republican situation. He really did not mention the name Donald Trump once. And Donald Trump, where he loves to make everything about himself during a presidential campaign, that will fare terribly in the state of Virginia. His margin of victory may even be, or defeat may even be bigger in Virginia in 2024 than in 2020. Virginia is still a safe Democratic state at the presidential level, but Glenn Youngkin wrote the playbook on how Republicans could win in the state. However, if Donald Trump is the nominee, I do not see a possibility of Virginia going red. I think Virginia is at best likely, but I think still safe for the Democrats at this time. If Donald Trump's the nominee, likely. If it is not, actually, I'll leave it unlikely for now, just cause. But at the presidential level, Virginia is not going red unless a candidate like Glenn Youngkin, who's not divisive, who focuses on the issues that people of Virginia care about, are able to keep this state likely. North Carolina is a state that gets a lot to talk about, a lot about how the state has changed. When you look at the numbers, North Carolina has really not changed. It was very close for Bush twice. It voted for Obama once, very, very narrowly, in 2008. And then it reverted back to Mitt Romney by about 3%, and then Trump won it by about 2%, and I think he won it by about 2% in 2020. So North Carolina is kind of in that lean column, and it has been for about 20 years or so. And except for 2008, North Carolina is pretty much holding strong in that situation. The state of Georgia and Florida. These two states are super interesting. I'm going to go with Florida first, because Florida, we know, has been a swing state for a very long time. In 2000, George Bush, through everything that happened, I'm not going to explain it too much in this video because I could do a whole video about the state of Florida in 2000 that, many people, many political analysts that are much smarter than me have gone over, and even they have explained it in detail, and they kind of still trying to figure out what happened in Florida, who really won the state. They know more than me, and sometimes they're not sure. So I'm not going to comment too much on that, but Bush won the state of Florida very, very narrowly. He won it by a little bit bigger in 2004. Barack Obama was able to win the state of Florida in 2008 and in 2012. And Donald Trump was able to win the state in 2016 and 2020. And the state of Florida did vote for Trump by 3% in 2020. So now the question is, at the presidential level, has Florida gone the way of Iowa and Ohio? And to that, I say, hold on. Because I know Republicans will think, well, they've won Florida 2 election cycles in a row. They're going to become complacent and think we have the state on lock now. In all fairness, Obama won Florida twice, too. And Bush won Florida twice, too. And it flipped to parties both times. So Florida's a state, when a state is decided by under 3%, that state is still competitive. It is. That being said, I would start off with Florida in the tilt column just because Republicans do start off at an advantage in the state, but I don't think, actually probably in the lean column, but I don't think Florida is out of reach by any means for the Democratic Party, especially in 2018, where you saw on a good midterm night, Andrew Gillum and Bill Nelson were almost able to beat Rick Scott and Ron DeSantis, respectively. So, say Republicans win in 2024, 2026 should be a good Democratic midterm wave year. Of course, what governors and senators are up make a big difference on that, but the environment should be Democratic favored. You could see Florida potentially flip in 2026, because who knows what politics will be like, 4 years from now? I mean, you never know what's going to happen with stuff like that. But the state of Georgia, the last state I'll be going over, I know this is a long video, so I'm going to try to make this relatively quick. The state of Georgia, solid R state for Bush, pretty much a solid R state for McCain and Romney as well. And then from 2012 to 2016, Georgia became super close. and it voted for Trump by about 4 or 5 percentage points, in 2016. And then in 2020, I think Joe Biden shocked the political world by narrowly winning Georgia. Now, when you look at the state of Georgia, it shouldn't be too much of a surprise because the Atlanta area really is booming. There's a massive growth of population in Atlanta and surrounding suburbs and exurbs of Atlanta. So Georgia did flip and vote for Joe Biden. Stacey Abrams versus Brian Kemp was very close in 2018. I have no doubt in my mind it'll be close in 2020. Georgia is a state that a lot of people are coining the Virginia or the new Virginia of the South, where it's flipped once, it's going to stay blue forever. You know what? It might be the case. I'm not there yet. I would still argue, Georgia, you could argue, is a pure toss-up. You honestly could. I'm going to narrowly put it in the tilt R column, just because I think 2022 is going to be a big wave year for the Republicans. If Brian Kemp can hold on and Herschel Walker can defeat Raphael Warnock, that's kind of a Republicans saying, okay, we're not beaten yet. We understand the Democrats are doing better, but if we put up the right candidates, we are not beaten yet. However, this is where things could really go bad for the Republicans. Herschel Walker and David Perdue were both handpicked by Donald Trump to be the candidates. If Stacey Abrams and Raphael Warnock are able to even narrowly beat both of those candidates handpicked by Trump, that is a referendum on the former president in the state of Georgia saying that we don't like the former president in the state. And that could be Brian Kemp saying, if you just stayed out of here and didn't talk about me in such a negative light, this state could still be red. And then Georgia, I think at that point, goes into the lean Democratic column, and Georgia may be gone for the GOP for a pretty long time. But for now, we have to wait and see how it plays out in the midterms, but I think Georgia narrowly starts off in the tilt column. So that is my updated look at how these swing states have kind of trended since 2000 to 2020. I know this is a very long video. If you stayed all the way throughout this video watching this whole thing, thank you so much for watching. That is pure dedication, and I really appreciate you if you have done that. If you just skipped to the end to watch this part, honestly, I would not blame you at all. I don't know what I would have done. I don't know if I would have sat through this whole video, but if you did, thank you so much. That's awesome. I really appreciate it. And if you have made it all this way, you're truly a big fan of elections. So if you like the video and subscribe to the channel, that would help me and the channel out a lot. I'd really appreciate it. And stay tuned because we're going to have some more videos coming out in the coming days and coming weeks as well, especially as 2022 gets closer. I'm going to continue my series on the Senate races, so you definitely don't want to miss that, especially if your home state should be coming up relatively soon as well. So yeah, that'll do it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.